Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, along with Tariq Spence.
Hey, everybody. All right.
And Pat Duffy down on the end in New Jersey. Tell us about it.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's the only new content we get is The Last Dance, so I had to go with the Jordan alternate, 1998. He came back. Now we're wearing black kind of jersey, and it's my favorite kind of sports jersey because it's a Second Amendment jersey, Bill.
You were going to use it. Go ahead. The Second Amendment jersey.
That would be the right to bear arms, buddy. Come on, come on.
Oh, how could you fall for that? How could you fall for that one?
Well, I didn't. I knew it was coming. I'm just playing straight, man.
Unbelievable.
Tariq, I assume we're watching like The Last Dance. I wanted to talk a little bit about it off the top about the whole idea that Michael Jordan brought up, and it was in a general sense, this whole thing about athletes getting involved in two forms, both politically and commercially, and why it is we as the general public care so much about what these guys think.
Well, I mean, because they're superstars. I mean, Michael Jordan, at the time in which he was asked to take this political stance in North Carolina, Helms versus Grant, he's not that type of guy. And that's okay. We have plenty of athletes nowadays that are not that type of athlete, that are not going to endorse a candidate, whether they know more about that candidate or not. And, of course, they're going to take this whole comment about Republicans buy sneakers, too, that he had in jest, a little bit too far. But we didn't have the media as big as it was back then that we do right now, where basically athletes don't mind saying how they feel about what's going on in their city. They don't mind if they have a comment of whether or not people are being treated right. So it's more of it's a change from back then, because that's the era it was in. Play basketball, this is what I do. I'm not going to go into a political world where I don't know anything about these candidates and mistakenly even endorse the wrong one.
Commercially, too, Pat, what strikes me is like the case being made that, Jordan's going to Nike was Converse's big mistake. I can't think consciously of ever having bought a product because a particular athlete used it. I don't get the pull there.
Okay, so I think that's a generational thing. Like, as we're having this conversation, like 20 feet to my left are 25 pair of Air Jordan sneakers that I've been collecting my whole life. I'm wearing a Michael Jordan jersey as we speak right now. And if you look at the history of sports brands, I mean, Nike pulled themselves away from Adidas, from Converse, from Reebok, from Pony, from Sport Build at the time because of that brand awareness that Jordan was wearing. I think there was a certain point in your life where you do care what that guy's wearing, what is happening, and it just coincided that this explosion of exposure, along with kids wanting to be like him and emulate him, all came together to make it a legitimate thing. I mean, Bill, were you aware of the brands that your favorite athletes were wearing when you were growing up in New England when you were a kid?
I was not.
So,
brand awareness might be the key phrase that you use there. But honestly, and if even you, I mean, can you remember specifically buying something because so and so likes it?
Yeah, so I when I was a kid, I played street hockey, obviously, with my buddies in the driveway, and I went out and I got the exact same Bauer street hockey pads that Dominic Hasek wore, and I was upset because they only sold them in black and teal, and I wanted them in black, red, and white, just like Hasek had. But I went out of my way to find those things, the exact ones he wore, and went and got the goofy helmet instead of the ones that they were selling at Dick's and all the other kids wore, because I wanted to look just like Dominic Hasek.
But it was weird. When I was a kid, I mean, they had Jordans. All the kids had Jordans, but I lived in an era in New York City where you got your sneakers stolen. So I never even wanted the opportunity to lose those sneakers. So I mean, because they were literally like the Cadillac of kids' sneakers. Like, that was the sneaker to have for the first day of school. That was the way it sort of went. But I mean, I remember buying Ballpark Franks, because I have no idea, because I guess Jordan endorsed them, but I don't remember really buying too many other. I don't remember buying too many other items because an athlete had them. I mean, I had Patrick Ewing's because I grew up in New York City. So, I mean, that was kind of kind of had your Ewing. That was about it. But I was never really pressured by an athlete to buy anything. But once again, I mean, you have two people already. One that said, yep, I got it because the athlete said I had it. And you have somebody on the other end who's kind of like, meh, I don't really need it.
But, I mean, the way that it's all built, like, Bill, give me the favorite athlete you had when you were a kid, someone you idolized. Who was it?
I suppose, Larry Bird was kind of big.
Okay, so let's say if you were 13 years old and Larry Bird only talked about his Converses and I play better because of my Converses, what teenage kid is not going to think if I go get these sneakers, I'm going to be like, play like, at least look like Larry Bird?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of like, do you drink Gatorade because so-and-so does, or like the brand of popcorn you use or whatever. This is worth multi-million dollars to the companies to get these guys to say they use it. And I don't know how you get any bang for that.
It must have worked. Look at all the advertising money Gatorade has made and how much it worked for Hanes, for Michael Jordan. Like it worked. It worked enough to get not the entire market, but enough people to be interested in buying a specific type of underwear.
Yeah. And going back, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill. Well, going back to that whole brand awareness idea, right? Like when I see Michael Jordan, he's so associated with McDonald's, that is a McDonald's commercial. He's so associated with Hanes, that's a Hanes commercial. When I see Tom Brady, he is so associated with Uggs. Every time I see Tom Brady, I think avocado and Uggs. I'm not kidding, because Tom Brady talks about avocados and he talks about wearing Uggs, and it stands out. Stetson cologne, right? Like they become, these athletes, if you can tie them to your product, a walking commercial without them having to say a word about it.
Are you going to ask Bill if he owns Uggs? Are you really going to ask him that on this show?
I know he does.
Did I do?
Yeah, yes. I mean, you look stylish enough where you could pull that off.
I'm going to plead the fifth. We're at the Rochester Press Box. We're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay & Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Welcome back and thanks for joining us. We're the Rochester Press Box and we're talking Buffalo Bills. Pat, it's a new era for the Bills, huh? We got Bryan Cox playing for us now.
Bro, it was so funny, man. When I saw that come across my Twitter feed, like 10-year-old me got so very angry. Like, I totally forgot about Bryan Cox as a human being. And as soon as I saw that name again, I'm not angry that the Bills signed him. Just seeing that name over again, like all of the emotions that I hated about Bryan Cox and the fist fight with Carwell Gardner in the tunnel and the incident that happened at Ralph Wilson's, well, at the time, Rich Stadium. I hate Bryan Cox. I've always hated Bryan Cox. And just the mention of his name gets my blood boiling.
But it's his son. What I mean, this kid comes in and plays well for you. What are you gonna do?
I'm not upset they signed him. I just find it interesting that Bryan Cox, being a Dolphin, doing what he did, made such an impression on me as a child. Just seeing that name, I was like, I hate him so much.
I think I know what they get Duffy for Father's Day. It's a Bryan Cox Bills jersey.
Hey, Tariq, we don't seem to have rivalries like this anymore, Tariq. I mean, that old Miami Dolphins thing that was so important that Ralph Wilson went to the wall for it, to keep Miami in the AFC East so that it would always be playing. And Bryan Cox brings it to mind, and also the passing of Don Shula, who, of course, him and Marv Levy went at it during all those great Buffalo Bills years. But kind of miss that, don't we?
I do. I missed those days where it was basically, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Jets. I mean, it was really a hatred, and it kind of got destroyed by the Patriots. The Patriots just beat everybody, and then all those rivalries died away, and all of those legends and legendary games go away. It's interesting, when I was looking at Don Shula and his unfortunate passing, the first thing I thought about was the Spike game. That's the first thing I thought about with him and Marino. But I'm a Giants fan, and yet I could feel the intensity of that rivalry. I could feel the intensity of a Dolphins-Bills game. Those are the things that really draw. I don't watch Duke, North Carolina, for the fact that it's Duke. It's the fact that there's a bitter rivalry that's going on that draws me in. That makes me watch two teams I would have never watched before.
Pat, why isn't the Patriots-Bills thing the same that Miami-Buffalo used to be?
Well, I think part of it is the growing of the game in the NFL at the time. Like, it was coming on the scene. This was all brand new. You had a legend in Don Shula who was slowly losing his cachet, and it was the Bills that were taking it away from him. The Bills had been just destroyed by the Dolphins the entire 1980s, right, Bill? They didn't win a game for 10 years against the Miami Dolphins. Like, to Tariq's point, the Patriots came in and started beating the at everybody. I get the feeling now that Brady's gone and Belichick, who will be 69 when this season starts, That's going to change things. And maybe the rivalries in the AFC East with your Sam Darnolds, with your Tua Tagovailoas, with your Josh Allens. You got 3 young guys, lots of talent on all the teams. We could be seeing a resurgence of what we saw in the late 80s to mid-90s in the AFC East.
You know, Tariq, just as he mentions that, I almost can feel a chill coming on, and that we're on the verge of, I think, a great era for the AFC East.
Well, think about all these quarterbacks that are so young in their development in the AFC East, and the fact that the Patriots, who have now lost their veteran legend quarterback, have to rebuild and all of that. And can they possibly get a quarterback next year? There seems to be this sort of theory that they want a Lawrence. So we'll wait and see what happens. It'll be fun to see and get it all duking out. Last big rivalry I think Buffalo had with New England is when I think Rex Ryan was in it, and there was all this talk about how we're going to beat him, how we're going to beat him, how we're going to beat him. They need that back again.
Hey, because I know you love to talk about the New York Giants. The only thing geographically I could think of that compared to the Buffalo-Miami rivalry and that they went out of their way for it was putting Dallas in with the Giants, the Eagles, and the Redskins. You had to do that, right?
Oh, it was great. I mean, Thanksgiving Day, if it was Cowboys, Redskins, I was watching. If it was Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, you're watching. It was just 2 teams that would just beat each other up no matter what the scenario is, only to have maybe one team make it into the playoffs after the whole season is done. Oh, I miss those days. I hope to see them back.
Yeah, those the Steelers division with the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens, really great. I think the AFC East can become that again. Where the Rochester Press Box, like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, Tariq Spence, Pat Duffy. Like it or not, Tariq, Andy Dalton signing with the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't like it. I don't like it, not from a Giants fan. I don't like it for Dak Prescott. And I know this whole thing is going to come out, and I'll get to it in Unfinished Business, about how he's the backup, and he understands he's the backup. He's from Texas. He played at Texas. He has a chance now to go back to Texas. This is a tailor-made for a situation that if Dak Prescott has a bad season, that Andy Dalton can step right in. I don't like the way this is played, and I'll talk more about that in Unfinished Business coming up.
Yeah, Pat, plus the fact I think Dalton might just be the most qualified backup quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's an argument you can make. I just don't understand what you're doing to Dak Prescott. They almost did it to spite him, right? Yeah. Like, you need to have this guy under contract. He's arguably a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now, despite what the Cowboys have done to keep that from happening. And you go out and you do this for what reason?
Now, I really think that they signed him as a backup, though. I'm not sure that there's a conspiracy theory there.
I don't think they're doing it intentionally to replace him, but you know how Jerry Jones is. You know how he is with his ego. Well, if you don't want to sign the deal that we're going to lay out for you, here is a veteran NFL quarterback that can do the job if you don't want to do it. There was an obvious message being sent.
Yeah, I think it's... Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
No. I was just going to say, I mean, you could have gotten a serviceable backup quarterback, but you went and got a starting quarterback who's been in the playoffs before. You know what I mean? It would have been even more long if they got, I don't know, Cam Newton, an MVP.
Pat, quickly, like it or not, you going to watch South Korean baseball?
I've been watching South Korean baseball. I love South Korean baseball. I'm not so much watching the game as I am the mascots and all the crazy stuff that goes around the game. Did you see how they did the first pitch, Bill?
No, go ahead.
They put a little kid in a big blow-up baseball, and they had him walk from the pitcher's mound to the catcher. The mascots, you got to Google the South Korean. Like, the mascots are more intense than the actual baseball game is. I love to see how other countries do sports that, became big in America, because it's so much more creative. They don't have the tradition holding them back, and it makes it so much more entertaining. In fact, I would make the argument when it comes to hockey and basketball and baseball that these leagues that we have now should take a look over there and maybe unstuff your shirt a little bit. Let's have a little more fun. Give me a 7-foot-tall dinosaur that runs around and eats kids' faces.
It's terrible. What are you doing, man? First of all, this is a great opportunity for baseball over there. I mean, listen, there's no other game in town. So right now, you will catch the interest of Duffy and anybody else who wants to watch a little baseball for about 2 to 3 weeks until Major League Baseball decides to make a decision. So do all of that dinosaur stuff, do all the robots in the stands, do whatever you want just to catch this audience for 2 weeks, because once baseball makes a decision, then we'll see where we go from there. But I don't want to get involved. It comes on what time? Like 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, well, you're up. I know your job. You got the same hours I do. Watch the baseball, Tariq.
Hey, I can't use that for my show.
Point made. We are the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished Business is next.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. Pat.
This week, the NFL, and really all offseason, has been preparing as if the season's going to come off with absolutely no difference because of the coronavirus situation. They're going to start the season on time. They plan on having fans in the stands. There will be exceptions taken to keep people safe. But there was an interesting leak, according to some sources, that the NFL, if they have to start the season without fans in September, will lose each franchise $100 million in revenue from concessions and tickets. And secretly polled, every single NFL owner said they would rather start the season in November with fans than in September without them. See, here's the thing. If NFL fans are told they can't start the season in September because it just wouldn't be feasible, the players would be at risk, you'd be putting other human beings at risk, they would be upset about it, but they would understand. If they were told that the NFL season won't start in September because the NFL and their franchises, which already make billions of dollars a year, are going to want to make that extra $100 million, we're going to riot. The NFL, with this information getting out, has no choice now, if it's feasible, to start their games in September without fans. Because if I have to wait to November to watch my Buffalo Bills, all because the Pagula family makes money on top of the money that they're making, I'm out, man.
Listen, for Dak Prescott to sit back and watch the news that he now has a new backup quarterback that is a pretty darn good quarterback that's led his team to the playoffs before, and then sit back and also have to wait for the contract to be negotiated between his agent and the Dallas Cowboys, I feel terrible for Dak Prescott. And I'm a Giants fan. Dak Prescott played the good soldier. Dak Prescott, during all the controversy of kneeling in sports, was the leader through the Cowboys through that whole situation and the organization. Dak Prescott said nothing when his running back got paid, even though he didn't show up. Dak Prescott did what he needed to do in the regular season and trying to get the Cowboys to the postseason, and everything you want your leader to do in a quarterback. That being said, Dak Prescott still isn't getting the number he's going to get. And for Cowboy fans, if you like Dak Prescott, you want the best for him, not just in a Cowboys uniform, but him as a football player for doing what he did to help the organization and his team and the leadership. He played the good soldier. He played the good quarterback. He may not get paid by the Dallas Cowboys, but somebody else will if they don't reach an agreement by the time this airs.
His basketball career has been over for about 17 years now, but Michael Jordan's about as big now as he has ever been. The Last Dance documentary has given all these people who never got a chance to see Michael Jordan play basketball in his prime a chance to see what all the fuss was about. It makes me wonder what LeBron James thinks about all this, but that's a story for another day. What strikes me most about the documentary is how unapologetic Jordan is about his life. The grudges that he held, the hatred that he held. He was a bully. It was petty. That over-the-top competitiveness. He stands by all of what he is. Now, nothing in this documentary makes any of us, I don't think, like Michael Jordan any less. But it makes me wonder if, like, when we have 25 years to look back on our own life, if there isn't something that we might have done differently. That's not the case with Michael Jordan. Maybe someday he'll feel like that, but I wouldn't bet on it. That's Unfinished Business, and that is our program. Guys, thank you very much.
I wouldn't bet on it. Would Jordan bet on it? That's the question.
Absolutely, you would. Tariq, thank you, Pat, as always.
You.
Thank
Second
you.
Amendment.
Oh, look at
Thanks
those
for joining us.
arms.
Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.